So this is about, I think this is the 60s. And the sequence, I'm going to get ahead of myself a little bit, but the sequence is that the various ice companies owned the dam until, owned the whole 80-acre property until 1929. And then it was bought by Palmer of Palmer Square. And it was just about the same, so he owned it in the 1930s, Edgar Palmer. And he used it, we don't have much evidence of how he used it. Apparently he used it as a place for alumni gatherings. And it was, he was the class of 1903 at Princeton. And we don't really have much evidence of any improvements that he made there. Although, as Christine mentioned, the evidence suggests that he built this upper sedimentation pond. So in 1946, J. Dudley Clark bought the property for his family, and in the 50s hired Ralph Bowen. Many of you know that Ralph Bowen was an architect working from 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and he did maybe 30 or 40 houses in Princeton. Some of them are prominent houses that we would know. He was sort of a colonial revival architect. So he designed this house for the Clarks. And of course, this is now the Mountain Lake house that Phobos rents for events and things. And here's the Clark family. Imagine growing up here on this place, and you've got this 7 or 8 acre lake as your front yard. And of course, they're playing hockey, and they're using the ice aspects of the lake, which of course is why it was originally built. So in the 1870s, Stephen Marjoram lived here in town, and he was quite an entrepreneur, and he owned a quarry called Marjoram's Quarry, which we're going to see in a minute, and he started the Riverside Ice Company, and they cut ice from the Millstone River, and in an area, I think along Route 27, which is now underwater because of Lake Carnegie. So this is an 1884 ad, and this was a really good combination of business because he had the quarry to deliver to deliver stone with his wagons, and then he had the wagons to deliver ice. So in the winter you could deliver stone, and in the summer you could deliver ice. And here it says, wagons deliver stone and ice in all parts of the city referring to Princeton, cheaper than can be bought elsewhere. It's got the various costs here for the ice. And around 1890, there was a problem with some of the septic systems in Princeton, and it contaminated the water supply, the groundwater, where everybody was taking groundwater out. And I think about 6 people died in Princeton from typhoid. And so that water around Nassau Street that was contaminated, of course there was runoff going down into the Millstone River, and that made the Millstone River completely unusable as a place to cut ice. So Stephen Marjoram went looking for a new place to cut ice, and he bought this little valley off of Mountain Road that had really been a farm. And so his idea was to create this lake, and he called it the Mountain Lake Ice Company. And Marjoram owned the quarry. This is his quarry on Harrison Street, where the current Quarry Park is located. So this is Harrison Street, going right up here, and the firehouse is right about over here on the east side of Harrison Street, and Nassau Street is right up here. And so you see they're cutting this vein of argillite. Where we are in Princeton, and it runs down through Lawrenceville, because you see all those wonderful stone houses on 206 going down to Lawrenceville. There's a vein of argillite, which is a sedimentary rock, and it occurs, it's a sandstone, and it occurs next to a softer sandstone that is used for, like the brownstone that people make buildings, for carving stone out of. And the argillite is a similar composition as the brownstone, except it's called argillite because argil is Latin for clay, and it has a very high clay content. And because it's been compressed for millions of years, it becomes extremely hard. It becomes excellent building stone, much stronger than brownstone. And so they occur together. And so there's this vein that runs right down the corridor where we are in New Jersey. And so this was a quarry there. And next time you ride down Nassau Street past Thomas Sweets and you look at the Princeton Elementary School, a big, beautiful stone building that the university now owns and has taken excellent care of. All of that stone, that argillite, came from this quarry, as did many other buildings in town. They actually call this Princeton stone. And you can see there's wagons moving all of this. These photos are from the Historical Society of Princeton. And here are some of the quarrymen. And I thought it was very interesting that there were some African Americans working in the quarry. Of course, this was the era before any I mean, they had dynamite, but there were no backhoes or anything. So imagine you had to wrestle all this gigantic pieces of stone with hand tools. So here are Mr. Marjorum's wagons, Mountain Lake Ice Company. Anybody know what building that is? That is the Nassau Club, right on Mercer Street. And this is the Bonner Foundation. So Marjoram had his men pose there. And then this is the entrance to Mountain Lake Preserve. So Mountain Road is right over here, and all these men are on the entrance going down to Mountain Lake Preserve. And this is the brick house as you enter Mountain Lake Preserve. The red brick house on the left-hand side, that was Stephen Marjorum's house. He bought the land first. He didn't build that house, and then he bought that house. So he lived there with his family, and he had his ice business out in the back. So horses and wagons delivering ice. Here's what the lake looked like. This photo and the next one are glass plate, well, two photos ahead are glass plate negatives that are in the Historical Society. And so this is the bottom, this is the earthen dam, and we're looking towards the southeast. And so here are ice houses. These are very big ice houses. There were 3 of them built just downstream from the earthen dam. And this is an ice elevator. And this is like a pier that extends out, and the ice is brought into here and is brought up to the elevator. This is called a gallery. And the gallery allows you to direct the ice either low to load the bottom of the ice house, or direct it higher to load the top of the ice house. So storing ice is kind of a lost technology, but so the Department of Agriculture put out these booklets to tell you how to build your ice houses. They were all over the place. One place they used to cut ice when the winters were colder was Howell Farm. If it ever gets cold enough around here, you might keep your eyes open, because Howell Farm will then cut ice again. It's a very interesting process. But you put the ice in the ice houses packed with straw, and because of the insulation in the ice houses, they could keep the ice into July, which was pretty remarkable, and you could still sell ice. These are photos from the Library of Congress, and this is in Connaught, Pennsylvania, and it shows ice harvesting on a lake much bigger than Mountain Lake. But the way you harvest ice is first you have to score the ice, and you have this ice plow, which is here, which we're going to see in a couple of minutes, and then you have this marker guide. And so your horse pulls you, and you do a straight line down the ice, and so you dig a 3-inch groove into the ice. The ice has to be a minimum of 8, but hopefully it's 12 inches thick of ice in order to be able to cut, and also for horses and everybody else to stand on. So you put a 3-inch groove in the ice, and then when you have the first groove, you then put this marker guide in the first groove, and now you cut the second groove, and you just keep going, and you cut all these grooves. You do a checkerboard across the ice, and then you have these wedges, and you take the wedge and you put it down to that groove, and you pry it, and you break open these ice sheets. And of course, they still have grooves in them. And you have these poles, which are also called pikes, and you move those around. And eventually you create a channel, and you move those ice sheets down here to the bottom of the elevator, and then you break them into ice cakes. And then they come up the elevator, and you can see the different levels of the gallery, and here are the ice cakes. They're called ice cakes. They're going into the gallery. And all of this is exactly what was done at Mountain Lake.